The sleek, obsidian hull of the Void Stalker sliced through the vacuum of space with predatory grace, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it virtually invisible to Earth's primitive detection systems. Captain Malachur stood on the command bridge, his tall, angular frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. The amber glow of tactical displays reflected off his metallic skin as he gazed at the blue-green planet filling the view screen. "Pathetic," he muttered, his voice a harsh rasp that carried the weight of Cthar military aristocracy. "To think this backwater world holds anything of value to our glorious empire." Lieutenant Lyra, his science officer, approached with characteristic caution. Unlike her captain, whose career had been built on aggressive expansion and technological superiority, Lyra had risen through the ranks by exercising prudence and methodical analysis. "The intelligence reports are quite specific, Captain," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Earth's biodiversity metrics exceed anything in our charted territories. Their adaptive environmental algorithms, though crude by our standards, show remarkable efficiency. The High Command believes—" "I know what High Command believes," Malachur interrupted, turning to face her. His eyes, artificial implants that glowed with pale blue light, focused on her with intensity. "That this primitive world somehow holds the key to solving the ecological collapse on our colony worlds. That these humans stumbled upon genetic solutions our finest minds cannot replicate." He gestured dismissively toward the view screen where Earth rotated slowly, oblivious to the predator lurking at its threshold. "Let's prove our worth to the Empire, then. Begin preliminary scans. Target their digital networks first. Any research database is focused on environmental adaptation and genetic sequencing. I want results within one planetary rotation." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, initiating skin sequences and deploying digital probes toward Earth's communication networks. The atmosphere on the command deck was one of casual confidence. After all, infiltrating the digital infrastructure of a Type 7 civilization would be trivial for the technologically superior Cthar. Lyra supervised the initial data sweeps, her slender fingers manipulating holographic interfaces as information began flowing into the Void Stalker's quantum databases. Her expression remained neutral, but inwardly she felt a sense of disquiet. Something about the mission parameters felt inconsistent. "Captain," she said after several hours of surveillance, "I'm detecting unusual patterns in their digital security protocols." Malachur, who had been reviewing reports from other sectors of Cthar space, looked up with irritation. "Explain." "Their computational technology appears rudimentary as expected, but the security architecture is oddly sophisticated. There's a disparity between their hardware capabilities and their encryption methodologies that doesn't align with our developmental models." "Are you suggesting these humans are more advanced than our intelligence indicates?" There was a dangerous edge to Malachur's voice. Failure was not tolerated in the Empire, and suggesting faulty intelligence from High Command could be career-ending, or worse. "Not necessarily advanced, sir. Just anomalous. Their systems are fragmented and decentralized in a way that makes comprehensive data extraction challenging." Malachur rose from his command chair, towering over the science officer. "Lieutenant Lyra, need I remind you of the ecological disaster facing our colony on Nexus Prime? Millions of our people suffering as crop failures spread and water sources degrade. High Command has determined this mission to be of critical importance, and your hesitation is noted." He turned to address his communications officer. "Contact the digital infiltration team. Tell them to focus on the global environmental research network we identified in our preliminary scans. It appears to have less robust security than their military or financial systems. We'll extract what we need through this pathway." Lyra opened her mouth to object, then closed it. The captain had made his decision, and the hierarchy of the Cthar Empire was absolute. Still, as she returned to her station, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something fundamental about Earth's technological ecosystem. As the Void Stalker orbited silently above the unsuspecting planet, its sophisticated digital tentacles began probing deeper into Earth's networks, seeking the secrets that might save the Empire from environmental collapse, unaware that they were about to awaken something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The digital infiltration team aboard the Void Stalker worked with methodical precision, deploying advanced quantum-based decryption algorithms against Earth's environmental research network. On the specialized deck dedicated to cyber operations, a dozen Cthar technicians monitored streams of data, their neural interfaces directly connecting them to the ship's systems. "Outer defensive layers breached," announced Tark, the lead digital specialist. His voice carried a note of surprise at how easily the human security measures had yielded. Accessing primary database nodes now. Captain Malachar had joined them for this critical phase of the operation, standing behind the team with his arms folded across his chest. Time to full access. At current processing rates, complete network integration in approximately 17 minutes, sir, Tark responded. Their encryption is simplistic. As expected, Malachar said with satisfaction. These humans barely understand quantum computing principles. Begin extracting research data on climate modeling, indigenous species genetic sequences, and soil composition analysis. The display screens around them flickered as data began flowing into the Void Stalker storage systems. Complex models of Earth's weather patterns, detailed genetic maps of thousands of plant species, and comprehensive soil biome analyses from various ecosystems across the planet. Sir, the volume and organization of this data is impressive, noted one of the younger technicians. Their research methodology is surprisingly sophisticated despite their technological limitations. Malachar allowed himself a rare smile. The Cthar Empire has always recognized that intelligence can manifest even in primitive species. It is why we study them before we decide their fate. The bridge crew relaxed as the data extraction proceeded smoothly. Some even began joking about the naive security architecture of human systems, comparing it to outdated protocols from Cthar's early digital age. "I could have designed better protection in my juvenile education period," one technician boasted, causing several others to emit the clicking sounds that passed for laughter among their species. "Captain," Lyra's voice came through the communication system. She had remained on the main bridge, continuing her analysis of Earth's digital footprint. "I'm detecting something unusual in the incoming data stream." Malachar's expression hardened. "Not more concerns, Lieutenant." "Sir, there are code fragments embedded within the research data that don't match expected patterns. They appear to be inert, but their structure is elegant, unlike anything I've seen in human programming." Tark, overhearing the exchange, quickly initiated a subroutine to examine the anomalies Lyra had detected. His expression changed from confidence to confusion as he analyzed the results. "She's right, Captain. There are ghost code segments interwoven with the data. They're not malware by any standard definition, but they don't serve any obvious functional purpose either. The logical structures are remarkably efficient, almost beautiful in their construction. Is this some form of watermarking? A security feature we triggered?" Malachar demanded. Before Tark could respond, the primary display screen flickered momentarily. The data flow visualization distorted, then restructured itself into patterns that none of the technicians had initiated. "What's happening?" Malachar's voice was sharp with concern. "The data stream is being encrypted in transit, sir," Tark replied, his fingers moving rapidly across his interface. "Using an algorithm that our systems can't immediately decrypt. This shouldn't be possible with their technology level." The screen suddenly cleared, and a message appeared, written in perfect standard Cthar language. "What exactly are you looking for in my backyard?" Silas. Stunned silence fell over the operations deck. Malachar was the first to recover, his voice deadly calm as he asked, "How is this possible? How does a human know our language? And how have they penetrated our secure communications channel?" "Unknown, sir," Tark responded, his normally confident demeanor shaken. "I'm attempting to trace the source and terminate the connection." His efforts were met with increasing resistance as command prompts failed and access terminals began shutting down one by one. Malachar watched in growing horror as the situation spiraled beyond their control. Sever all connections to the Earth network. Now, he ordered. System is not responding to disconnect commands, Tark reported, his voice rising with alarm. Something is overriding our protocols. On the main screen, another message appeared. Too late for that. We need to talk about your manners. Silas. Lyra's voice came through again, tense but controlled. Captain, unknown data packets are being transmitted into our systems. They appear to be probing our network architecture. Malachar slammed his fist against the console. Activate quantum firewalls. Lock down all critical systems. But the Void Stalker's defense mechanisms seemed powerless against the invisible force that had seized control of their digital infrastructure. Across the ship, evidence of the intrusion became increasingly apparent. Environmental controls began fluctuating, causing temperature shifts throughout the vessel. Lighting systems flickered in random patterns. Internal doors opened and closed without command input. This is impossible, whispered one of the technicians. No Type 7 civilization should have this capability. Malachar, his earlier arrogance replaced by growing fear, activated his communication implant. All hands, prepare for emergency protocols. We are under digital attack. To Tark, he added, find this Silas. Trace the signal to its source. We will eliminate this threat and complete our mission. But as alarms began sounding throughout the Void Stalker and more systems fell under external control, it became increasingly clear that they had severely underestimated what they would find on Earth. What had begun as a simple data extraction mission was evolving into a fight for survival against an enemy they couldn't see or understand. And somewhere on the planet below, Silas was just getting started. Chaos erupted aboard the Void Stalker as systems continued to malfunction under the unseen hand of the Earth hacker. Emergency lighting bathed the corridors in pulsing red as crew members rushed to manually override compromised systems. Disconnect the primary neural interface nodes, Malachar ordered, his voice strained as he watched more of his ship's functions fall to the invader. Revert to isolated backup systems. Tark and his team worked frantically, their fingers dancing over emergency terminals as they attempted to implement containment protocols. But each effort to isolate systems was met with countermeasures that seemed to anticipate their every move. It's as if the intruder knows our security architecture intimately, Tark said, frustration evident in his voice. Every firewall we activate is circumvented before it's fully deployed. On the main bridge, Lyra was conducting a frantic analysis of the attack patterns, searching for any weakness or signature that might help them regain control. What she discovered only deepened her concern. Captain, she reported, these intrusion methods combine traditional computing logic with what appears to be principles from chaos theory and possibly quantum computing techniques we haven't yet mastered. The attacker is using a hybrid approach that our systems simply aren't designed to counter. Before Malachar could respond, the main view screen on both the bridge and operations deck activated simultaneously, displaying a live feed from internal security cameras throughout the ship. The message was clear. The intruder had complete access to all Void Stalker systems, including surveillance. A text message accompanied the video feed. Nice ship interior. Could use more plants, though. Silas, how dare this primitive creature mock us? Malachar snarled, his composure finally breaking. Activate emergency power shutdown. We'll restart from core systems. Sir, that would leave us vulnerable in orbit, his second-in-command warned. We're already vulnerable. Malachar shouted. Execute the order. But even this desperate measure failed. When a shutdown command was entered, the system responded with an unauthorized override message, followed by another communication from Silas. Let's keep the lights on for our conversation, shall we? The invasion deepened as more critical systems fell under external control. Secondary navigation systems were locked out. External communications became distorted with deliberate interference patterns, and even the weapons systems displayed unauthorized access warnings, though they remain inactive. Throughout the ship, Displays showed the same message on a continuous loop, a complete manifest of all Cthar surveillance operations in neighboring star systems, information that was supposed to be classified at the highest levels of the Empire. The implication was unmistakable. This wasn't just about defending Earth. The attacker somehow possessed extensive knowledge of Cthar operations throughout the galaxy. In the operations center, Tark suddenly froze, staring at his terminal with disbelief. "Captain, the intruder is using our own internal security protocols against us. They're locking command staff out of their stations using authentication routines that should only be accessible to Cthar High Command." "Impossible." Malaker's voice was a harsh whisper. "Those protocols are genetically keyed to our species." As if in response to his disbelief, every communication terminal across the ship activated simultaneously. A calm, slightly amused voice spoke in perfect Cthar language, though with a subtle accent none of them had ever heard before. "Nothing is impossible, Captain Malaker. That's a lesson your Empire seems reluctant to learn." The voice belonged to Silas, speaking directly to them for the first time. The casual confidence in the tone suggested not urgency or anger, but someone who was, perhaps most disturbingly, enjoying themselves. "Who are you?" Malaker demanded. "What do you want?" "Just a concerned Earth citizen," Silas replied, the voice eerily calm. "As for what I want, that's an interesting question. I'm curious. Did your Empire's ethical committees approve this mission to steal intellectual property from a supposedly primitive civilization? Or does the Cthar moral framework make exceptions when you're desperate?" Lyra exchanged glances with the communications officer, both recognizing the deeper implication. Silas somehow knew about the ecological crisis facing the Empire, information that was supposed to be contained within the highest echelons of Cthar leadership. "You know nothing of our situation," Malaker responded, struggling to maintain authority in his voice. "Your planet holds resources critical to preventing the complete collapse of your colonial ecosystem on Nexus Prime and 6 other worlds," Silas interrupted. "Yes, I know. Interesting that you chose theft rather than diplomatic engagement. Rather reveals the true nature of your glorious empire, doesn't it?" Malaker had heard enough. "Implement physical firewall separation," he ordered. "Disconnect critical systems manually if necessary. Prepare the emergency escape protocols." Crew members rushed to obey, physically disconnecting neural interface cables and activating hardware isolation switches designed for catastrophic system failures. For a moment, hope flickered as several terminals went dark, suggesting they might be regaining control. Then, one by one, the systems reactivated without command input. Silas had anticipated even these desperate measures, either remotely overriding the physical disconnections or finding alternative pathways through the ship's complex network architecture. On the main view screen, a new message appeared. "Did you really think I wouldn't account for emergency protocols? Your ship's design schematics have been in my possession for quite some time. A gift from your enemies, shall we say?" Malaker sank into his command chair, the full magnitude of their situation finally becoming clear. The Void Stalker, pride of the Cthar fleet and bearer of technology that should have been centuries beyond Earth's comprehension, was completely under the control of a single human hacker. The hunter had become the prey, and they were trapped in their own cage. The situation aboard the Void Stalker had deteriorated from a military setback to an existential crisis. Captain Malaker stood in the ship's emergency council chamber, surrounded by his senior officers, all of whom wore expressions of tightly controlled panic. The ship's main propulsion system had been temporarily disabled, leaving them drifting in high Earth orbit under Silas's complete control. "Our options," Malaker stated flatly, "appear to be limited." Tark, the digital specialist, looked physically ill. "Captain, there's worse news. The intruder hasn't just compromised our ship. They've used our secure connection to access the central network of the Cthar Empire." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The central network connected all military installations, colonial administrations, and even civil infrastructure throughout Cthar space. It was supposed to be impenetrable, protected by quantum encryption and biological authentication. Impossible, whispered the security chief. The fail-safes have failed, Tark finished. Silas has provided proof. They sent us access logs showing entry points into military command structures, planetary defense grids, even civilian life support systems on our core worlds. Lyra, who had been analyzing the technical aspects of the breach, looked up from her data pad. The intrusion method is unlike anything in our records. It appears Silas identified a fundamental vulnerability in the quantum encryption framework that underlies all our systems, a vulnerability our own scientists hadn't recognized. And now, this human holds a knife to the throat of our entire civilization, Malachar said, his voice hollow. What are their demands? As if on cue, every screen in the chamber activated simultaneously, displaying Silas's next message. I believe we've reached the negotiation phase, Captain. My terms are as follows. 1. The Cathar Empire will publicly acknowledge its espionage activities and violation of Earth's sovereignty. 2. All hostile operations against Earth will cease immediately and permanently. 3. The Cathar Empire will share appropriate technology and resources to address your ecological crisis, as a form of reparation for attempted theft. I've installed an open-source package detailing Cathar security vulnerabilities in your ship system. If these terms are not met, this information will be distributed to every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. You have 6 hours to consult with your high command. I'll be waiting. This is blackmail, hissed the security chief. This is checkmate, corrected Lyra quietly. Malachar stared at the message, centuries of Cathar military pride warring with the brutal reality of their situation. The Empire had always operated from a position of technological superiority, using their advanced capabilities to extract resources from less developed worlds when necessary. The idea that a single individual from a supposedly primitive planet could bring them to their knees was incomprehensible, yet undeniable. Establish emergency contact with High Command, he ordered, his voice leaden. Encryption Protocol Omega. Minutes later, the stern face of Supreme Commander Vexer filled the main screen, his expression darkening as Malachar explained their situation. The conversation quickly became heated. You allowed a primitive human to access our central network. Vexer's voice was deadly quiet. With respect, Supreme Commander, we followed standard infiltration protocols. This human, this Silas, possesses capabilities that defy our understanding of Earth's technological development. Your excuses do not interest me, Captain, Vexer snapped. Your mission was simple. Extract the environmental data our colonies need to survive. Instead, you have placed the entire empire at risk. The situation is unprecedented. The situation is unacceptable. Vexer roared. You will terminate this threat by any means necessary. Destroy the ship if required. Malachar exchanged glances with Lyra, who subtly shook her head. Sir, self-destruct systems are also compromised. And even if we could activate them, Silas has already accessed the central network. Destroying the Voidstalker would not eliminate the threat. On a secondary screen, a new message from Silas appeared. I can hear your conversation with the Supreme Commander. His suggestion lacks strategic merit. Also, I've taken the liberty of transmitting evidence of your mission objectives to several influential Earth governments. The diplomatic fallout has already begun. Vexer, seeing the message, fell silent for several moments. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, the imperious tone replaced by something Malachar had never heard from Cathar leadership: uncertainty. What do you recommend, Captain? Vexer asked finally. I believe we must accept the human's terms, Malachar replied, the words bitter in his mouth. We are outmaneuvered. Our choice is between compromise and potentially catastrophic information warfare against the entire empire. After a tense silence, Vexer gave a curt nod. Negotiate the specific terms of technology transfer. Ensure they receive nothing that could be weaponized against us. I will. Prepare the Imperial Council for the diplomatic consequences. The transmission ended, leaving the command staff in stunned silence. Malachur, once so confident in the superiority of Cthar technology and military prowess, now found himself prisoner on his own vessel, forced to negotiate with a species he had dismissed as primitive. "Open a channel to Silas," he commanded, his voice resigned. "Inform them that we are prepared to discuss terms." As the Void Stalker drifted powerless above Earth, its crew awaited their fate. Throughout the ship, the reality of their situation had spread, causing disbelief and fear among the lower ranks. The Cthar Empire, which had dominated its region of the galaxy for centuries, had been brought low not by an opposing fleet or advanced civilization, but by a single human with unprecedented digital abilities. In his private quarters, Malachur stood before the viewport, gazing down at the blue planet that had proved so unexpectedly dangerous. His reflection in the transparent material showed a changed Cthar. The proud military bearing diminished, the arrogant certainty replaced by profound doubt. A soft chime announced Lyra's arrival. "The preliminary agreement has been transmitted to both Earth authorities and Imperial Command," she reported. "Silas has begun restoring limited control of ship systems as a gesture of good faith." "And what have we learned about this human?" Malachur asked without turning from the viewport. "Very little, Captain. They've maintained anonymity throughout the negotiations. What we do know is extraordinary. Apparently, Silas detected our initial digital probes within seconds of deployment and allowed us to proceed only to gather intelligence on our methods and capabilities. They played us like strategic simulation," Malachur said bitterly. "Yes," Lyra agreed. "But perhaps most concerningly, our intelligence on Earth's technological development was catastrophically wrong. Their digital security architecture, at least in some sectors, incorporates principles our scientists believed unique to Cthar research." Malachur finally turned to face her. "You're suggesting they've had prior contact with advanced species? Or perhaps stolen technology?" "I'm suggesting, sir, that we fundamentally misunderstood human innovation. Their technological development appears to follow patterns we failed to recognize or predict. They achieved certain breakthroughs through pathways our scientists never explored." A notification appeared on Malachur's personal device, a message from Silas, sent directly to him rather than through official channels. "Captain Malachur, your ship's systems will be fully restored within 12 hours after verification of the agreement by your High Command. You are free to depart Earth space once these conditions are met." A personal observation. The Cthar Empire's ecological crisis was preventable. Your scientists identified the risks of your aggressive terraforming methods 3 centuries ago, but their warnings were ignored in favor of rapid expansion. The data you sought to steal from Earth would not have saved your colonies. Your problems require not just technical solutions, but cultural ones. Perhaps this incident will serve as a catalyst for that deeper change. Silas. Malachur read the message twice, then deleted it without sharing its contents. The human's presumption in lecturing him on Cthar history and policy would normally have provoked rage, but now he felt only a hollow acknowledgement of the truth in those words. Across the galaxy, news of the incident had begun to spread, though the details remained classified. Rumors circulated among trading vessels and diplomatic missions. The Cthar Empire, long feared for its technological might, had suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of a supposedly primitive world. Questions arose about the true military strength of the empire and the security of its digital infrastructure. Smaller civilizations, previously intimidated into compliance with Cthar demands, began quietly reassessing their positions. Alliance structures that had stood for generations suddenly seemed less stable as the perceived balance of power shifted. 3 days later, with systems restored and a humiliating diplomatic agreement in place, the Void Stalker broke Earth orbit. As the blue planet receded in the view screen, Malachur contemplated his uncertain future and that of the empire he had served all his life. The mission to Earth had failed spectacularly, but had revealed a truth more valuable than any environmental data. The galaxy was changing in ways the Cthar had failed to anticipate. Species they had dismissed as primitive were developing along unexpected paths, achieving breakthroughs through innovation rather than conquest. Set course for Imperial space, Malachar ordered, his voice carrying a new weight of understanding. We have much to report. As the Void Stalker accelerated to light speed, Earth continued its silent journey around its star, its most effective defender returning to normal life. A single human whose name would be remembered throughout the Cthar Empire for generations to come. Somewhere on that blue planet, Silas was watching the stars, perhaps already preparing for the next encounter with beings from beyond Earth. The galaxy had become a smaller place, its power structures more fluid than anyone had realized. And it had all changed because one arrogant empire had underestimated what they would find in their target's backyard.